We have an expert panel to break it all down. NBC Boston reporter Mary Marcos, NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris, and Dr. Nicole Pinsack, a licensed clinical psychologist. Let's go right to Mary to break down the most pivotal moments in court today. Mary, you were in the courtroom. Take us through what you heard.
One of the most pivotal moments really was when Patrick Clancy testified that he thought the children were killed on what he thought was one of his ex-wife's best days. And Lindsay's lawyer even said that he didn't have to be there to testify on her behalf, but he was there talking about how Lindsay's mental health continued to decline over the course of about 4 months, even though they were actively trying to seek medical treatment.
Nicole, let's bring you in here because the defense in this case is saying postpartum psychosis in particular was at play. I think a lot of people have heard this case and they said, okay, it's dealing with postpartum and we think depression. This is different, right? Break down for us the differences there and what exactly we're talking about.
So postpartum psychosis occurs in 1 to 2 per every 1,000 births, and it's marked by a break from reality and typically characterized by delusions, fixed irrational beliefs, or hallucinations. So hearing things other people can't hear and seeing things other people can't see. And it is a medical emergency, and it's also temporary and very treatable.
Talk to us about what some of the risk factors are. I've heard it described as something that's very rare. When we hear what we heard from Patrick Clancy, her ex-husband, in court today about a 4-month decline, is that typical?
So with postpartum psychosis in general, the riskiest period is within the first month after birth and the first couple of weeks. So we really advocate for proactive postpartum mental health treatment. So once you get pregnant, set up care with a therapist or prescriber that specializes in postpartum mental health. And that way they can explain to you your unique risk factors and even prevent postpartum psychosis. Risk factors that we know include history of bipolar disorder, family history of bipolar disorder, history of psychosis, postpartum psychosis, birth trauma, history of trauma, even preeclampsia. So we really do understand some of these risk factors and can work towards preventing.
So Misty, there is a question of people have mental health issues, things that come up, but that doesn't necessarily mean it meets the burden in a criminal case to say, okay, you didn't understand what was happening. Break that down for us. Is there a precedent for this?
Yeah, so the defense here is arguing lack of criminal responsibility, meaning she's admitting that she committed the act, but she should not be held criminally culpable because she did not appreciate the wrongfulness of her actions or was not able to conform her conduct to the law. So that's in Massachusetts, kind of the equivalent of an insanity defense. To think of a case where a similar argument was used, let's go back to Andrea Yates, 2001, drowned her 5 children, raised a very similar argument. And here the defense is arguing that there were mental health issues due to this postpartum psychosis that was exacerbated by being over-medicated. 13 psychiatric drugs were prescribed during the period between September 2022 and January 2023. So that is the crux of the defense argument, and it's really going to come down to that expert medical testimony.
Nicole, from your perspective, when you hear this discussion about the amount of medications that were prescribed, we hear that number 13. What stands out to you?
So I can't comment on Lindsay Clancy's medical treatment. I'm not part of her treatment team, and it would be unethical for me to do so. But I can say in general, we have very effective medications for postpartum psychosis, and it is temporary and treatable.
Okay. Misty, when you think about what we heard from Patrick Clancy today, and he's going to be on the stand again, right? This isn't over, but what stood out to you?
So Patrick is an interesting witness because he's testifying right now, direct exam from the prosecution, but he's also on the defense witness list as well. So what we heard today was really laying out this timeline. From a prosecution perspective, a lot of focus on the days leading up to the killing, and in fact that day where he said that she seemed better. These were some of her best days. We saw videos of the family at a water park playing with the kids. She was able to function. Seems like a normal day. It doesn't seem like she's under any sort of psychotic episode. So that's where the prosecution is going. Now, from the defense perspective, what I picked up on is there is a time where there are serious and significant issues that are being recognized by Lindsay and also by Patrick. December, she says at least 2 times, according to his testimony, that she did express that she's having thoughts of harming the children, that they were actively seeking medical treatment. That's why this case is going to be so heavy on experts to talk about what her mental state was at the time the crime was committed. That is really the critical point in time from the jury's perspective and what they're going to have to grapple with in their determination.
Mary, let's bring you back in and have you pick it up from there. What is next in the coming days for this trial? And in terms of what we expect to hear as we move forward from the prosecution, they have brought up different things like the fact that they allege Lindsay Clancy was mapping things out when her husband left home that day. How important is that going to be moving forward?
Well, that'll be really important to the case, and that is pretty much where they left off today. They were going through the text messages between Lindsay and Patrick the day the children died, and that includes when Lindsay sent Patrick out to a restaurant to get takeout for dinner. She said she hadn't planned anything for dinner that night, and the prosecutors alleged that she sent him to a restaurant that they didn't typically get takeout from. So that will be where we pick up on Wednesday when court resumes at 9 o'clock in the morning, when that moment when Patrick comes home and what he finds.
Mary Marcos, Misty Marris, and Dr. Nicole Pinsack, thank you all. We appreciate it. And a reminder, if you or someone you know is in crisis, call or text 988 to reach the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can also visit 988lifeline.org.